Hey friends, welcome back to more stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and let's get right into today's Reddit posts. Am I the a-hole for checking my husband's dashcam footage on his car without his consent? I'm a 34-year-old female and I live with my husband, 37, and our daughter, 7. My daughter and I recently went on a short trip out of state, while my husband stayed as he had work and was supposed to look after our dog. On the last day of our trip, we got a call from my husband who was acting distraught and said that our dog Ellie had run away and that he could not find her. He claimed that she just bolted away from him in the park, into some bushes, and he could not find her. Our dog is quite small, a mini poodle mix and almost 13 years old. She is still active, but it is really unlike her to run away from us, and I was suspicious but chose to believe my husband. And me and my daughter were in grief but did not want to blame him. When we came back home, he seemed surprisingly okay, unlike us. Ever since the pandemic, my husband started working from home, and he has always been annoyed at how much attention we gave Ellie, and hated how Ellie begged to sit on our laps, and his while he worked. A few days later, we got a call from an animal rescue in a neighboring state, quite far from us, that she had been found. I picked up the phone and it was on our landline, which we almost never use these days, but was the contact on the microchip. I told my husband and he just said, "That is great, I am so happy." But it felt kind of blunt and insincere. I said it is strange that she got so far, and he responded that someone must have stolen her and then abandoned her. This made little sense to me as to why that would happen. When he was out drinking with his buddies, I copied the videos from his dashcam for the days I was away, and saw that he had indeed taken Ellie far out of state, and clearly dropped her in front of his car, thrown a frisbee-like object into a field, yelled "fetch," and drove off without her. I was livid and confronted him, and he just stupidly muttered how he dropped her there so she could find a farm and have a better life. And then the next day got really angry at me for viewing his dashcam and called me and my daughter a-holes. Well, it's pretty obvious in this situation that OP is not the a-hole. OP had a good reason to be suspicious, and decided to look into it on a hunch. This guy's only lashing out like this because he was caught. It's typical behavior for someone when they're caught in a lie like this. I think OP should plan a little road trip with her husband, and drop him off in a field and see how he likes it. Karen shut down on the airplane. Recently I took a 2-hour flight and had the pleasure of enduring a Karen with her apathetic husband and out-of-control toddler, one row in front of me on the other side of the aisle. Not to say I have anything against people flying with children. Behind me was a woman with 2 similarly aged children, and they were largely well-behaved. Anyway, Kevin Jr. was making a compelling demonstration on how one is never too young to be an absolute nuisance to everyone around him. Moaning, crying, jumping on his seat, grabbing mommy's tablet, reaching over to the seat to try and grab things from people sitting behind him. An absolute delight, I tell you. As it were, the 2 hours of torture were nearing their end, and as is custom, we were told to buckle up, open the window shades, and put the backrest into the upright position. Kevin Jr. wasn't having any of it. As is further custom, a flight attendant came down the aisle to check that we had all complied with the instructions given. As he stopped by the row of the Torella family, he remarked that the child must be buckled up, and the following conversation, paraphrased, ensued. "Ma'am, your child needs to be sitting down and with the seatbelt on for landing." "Yeah, I've tried, but he just isn't having it," said Karen. "This isn't optional. All passengers are required to follow the crew's instructions, and your son must be buckled up." "Look, if he doesn't want to, he's just not going to wear the seatbelt. I can't really do anything about it." Again, he must wear the seatbelt for landing. Now getting yappy, Karen says, "And what should I do about it?" The flight attendant leaves without another word, and very shortly afterwards is back with the purser. The conversation continues. "I hear that your child doesn't want to wear a seatbelt for landing, and you can't seem to get him to do it." "Yeah, but..." "Ma'am, I'll explain in very simple terms. You and your child must follow the crew's instructions, and you must be able to control your child. This is your responsibility. If you cannot control your child, you and your child will not be able to fly. This is not up for discussion." Karen shut up, the child shut up, and apparently he buckled up without another peep until we arrived at the gate. You gotta love it. Just an outright refusal to parent your own child under the excuse of, "Oh, kids are gonna be kids." No, Karen, it's not cute and quirky that your kid is so rambunctious. Of all the places you might be able to get away with this kind of thing, mid-flight is not one of them. But in the end, she did seem to get the message. Neighbor yelled at me because I harvested my fruits before she could steal them. I live in a very rural area and I'm a farmer. Obviously, I have a lot of land, and there's a patch of land that borders our neighborhood road where I have some plum trees. To be clear, this is my land. Those are my trees, and there is a fence. This morning I decided to go harvest the plums rather early at 7 a.m. because we have a heat wave here. This variety of plum is hugely popular here in France, especially for jam, but are hard to come by here in the south. Mirabelle plums. Every year I wait for them to ripen, and every year a sizable portion disappears. I suspected it was someone from the neighborhood but never knew who. Well, this morning I had my answer. So I was harvesting and was almost done when I see a neighbor walking down the road towards me with a basket. The second she saw me and realized that I was almost done with harvesting all the plums, she proceeded to yell at me. "That is so selfish of you. You're not the only one who likes them, you know. You could at least have left some for the rest of us." Now, this is a small neighborhood, in a small village. She knows I own the land. She knows I'm a farmer. But she still yelled at me for harvesting my fruits on my land. I just told her I know that people like them, which is why I'm making jam, and reminded her where and when she could find the farmer's market if she wants to buy a jar or two. Then I told her that now that I know it's her stealing the plums, if they disappear next year I will press charges for theft and trespassing. EMT decks an entitled a-hole for blocking an ambulance. In memory of my late mother, I'll retell one of my favorite stories when she was a nurse. Back in the 80s, she worked extra shifts in the TIPS, Trauma Intervention Program services. Professional nurses acted as grief counselors and rode around with ambulances or arrived on site where the living experienced a traumatic event. One evening, she got a call to a hotel where the parents experienced a rather violent reaction of their 8-year-old child. I don't have any details, sorry. My mom was on site comforting the mother while the EMTs were suffering the loss of losing the child just as they got there. The lead, Bruce, was 6'2", 230 pounds, thick 80s Magnum PI mustache, and a stern look that could make hardened cops look away. When he wasn't decked out in gear and looking menacing, he was a teddy bear according to my mom. The ambulance had parked outside the main entrance at an angle, half on the sidewalk with its rear butting into the 2-lane valet area. As I understood it, it was to avoid inconveniencing guests while still maintaining emergency access. The events of the evening were particularly traumatic, so everyone working for the hotel as well as guests in the know were somber. The EMT, Bruce, was escorting the coroner up, and my mom was downstairs consoling the grief-stricken parents. An entitled a-hole comes pulling up and decides to park directly behind the angled ambulance. According to my mom, literally inches of space between his Jaguar and the back of the emergency vehicle. My mother gets up to tell the entitled a-hole to move his vehicle, as he wasn't in the valet area. He instantly curses her out, and proceeds to head inside to the bar to meet his intended party. The one remaining valet is trying desperately to get the guy's keys to move his vehicle, and the entitled a-hole stops to curse both him and my mom out for daring to speak to him. Off inside he goes and the valet heads inside to report this, as my mother goes back to consoling the now further shaken parents. With the details of the coroner taken care of, both Bruce and his partner finish packing up the vehicle and are visibly pissed at the Jaguar blocking the ambulance. The entrance to the hotel explodes in a commotion, as security, the GM of the hotel, and the valet guy are escorting the entitled a-hole out of the hotel. There is a lot of shouting and everyone is staring at what's going down. The entitled a-hole is shoving his way against security, trying to get back inside, all while shouting he cannot be treated this way. He is so-and-so of blah blah corporation, and he will not be, quote, manhandled. Side note, Owen Wilson's character from Night at the Museum always made her laugh so hard because of this manhandled comment. The entitled prick had apparently been told the reason for the accident, or pieced 2 and 2 together with the coroner's vehicle, and made some comment like, "Well, there is no longer an emergency now, is it? Nobody is hurt." Completely unaware the parents of the child were across the valet station. Bruce hears this and drops his clipboard loudly. He marches up the stairs of the hotel, right up to the entitled prick, turns him around and decks him fully in the face in front of everyone. The entitled prick stumbles back and falls to the ground. Bruce marches up and leans over, Ali style. "Now someone is hurt," he said. Some other words were said my mom couldn't recall, but he answered the guy on the ground. "Go call for emergency services because I ain't gonna help you. Now go move your damn car," and storms off down the stairs. As he is passing, he pauses with the scariest face she has ever seen on him. Not helping when someone who was tailgating me had an accident and stranded themselves. I'm a 19-year-old woman and my boyfriend is a 26-year-old man, for context. I was driving on a rural stretch of highway in Utah, an area with no gas stations or services for about 100 miles. It's very hot and dry and there is no cell service. My boyfriend was with me. I was driving in the right lane with my cruise control set to the speed limit. There were some truckers passing me slowly in the left lane. This guy in a lifted pickup came speeding up in the left lane and got stuck behind the truckers who were beside me. Then he switched lanes to be behind me and started honking and tailgating and using his high beams. I turned the cruise control down a few miles per hour, hoping to encourage him to pass on the left because I wanted him gone. But instead, he stayed behind me and seemed to get madder. The large trucks passed me and left into the distance. And even now that the left lane was clear for at least 30 seconds, the guy in the pickup truck kept tailgating me. Then suddenly, he was gone. I didn't see what happened at first. Then I saw in my mirrors that he was in a ditch. I slowed down more to look, and my boyfriend said that I should stop so he could check on him. I said no, I was not getting near someone with that temper. No way. I drove on and my boyfriend said he was worried. What if nobody else stopped to help? This guy would be screwed, along with the other people he saw in the truck, who looked to him like they were a family. I said I had been more worried about myself after being raged at like that. And anyway, we couldn't turn back now. There was no turnaround for a while. Hopefully they had water in the truck, but if not, there was nothing I could do now. My boyfriend thinks I was really uncaring and I feel like I was being smart. Edit, about the "did you call for help" question I'm getting a lot. We didn't have cell service that day on the drive, or for the next few days because we were going camping. My boyfriend wanted to go driving to look for service, and I didn't feel comfortable with that because that'd mean getting to camp after dark the first night. I think OP had pretty good reason to be concerned about stopping after that person was so aggressive, especially with being out in the middle of nowhere with no service like that. Sometimes you gotta make that judgment call for your own safety. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, and also subscribe if you haven't already. So take care, friends. I'll see you all next time.